Now coming to meditation, nowadays sometimes you hear some teachers say that the Buddha's method of meditation is vipassana, and they go to the extent of putting down samatha meditation. But if you study the suttas carefully, you'll find in the Samyutta Nikaya, in the 5th book, the last book of the Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha told his monks, if monks, people ask, what kind of meditation the Buddha practices, then the Buddha said, tell them that the Buddha practices anapanasati, mindfulness of the breath or recollection of the breath. That is the Buddha's method of meditation. And the Buddha said that he practiced anapanasati, recollection of the breath, before he was enlightened. And even after he was enlightened, he also practiced anapanasati. So you find that actually the Buddha's method is anapanasati. But unfortunately nowadays some people belittle anapanasati also. It's very unfortunate. Actually in meditation we can practice both samatha and vipassana. Samatha meditation leads to samadhi. So it is the tranquility meditation or tranquilization meditation which makes your mind calm. And then vipassana is contemplation, using the mind to contemplate. And you can get wisdom provided there are certain other factors, the other factors of the noble path come together, you can get wisdom. But by itself, vipassana doesn't lead you very far. That's why in one sutta, in the Anguttara Nikaya, Venerable Ananda, in his old age, after the Buddha had passed into Nibbana, so because they had great respect for Venerable Ananda, whenever the monks and nuns, some of them attained arahanthood, they would come and report to the Venerable Ananda that they had attained arahanthood. So Venerable Ananda said all of them who attained arahanthood said that they attained arahanthood by one of 4 ways. The first one is practicing samatha followed by vipassana. The second one is vipassana followed by samatha. Third one is samatha and vipassana together. And the fourth one is meditating on the putting the mind, setting the mind internally. That means on the self, until the mind becomes one-pointed, and that person would know the path to liberation. So all these 4 methods involve both samatha and vipassana. And the Chinese translation for samatha and vipassana is Zhi Quan. Zhi is stilling the mind, Quan is contemplation, and that is the right translation. And it's not insight, because if vipassana is insight, then you don't need samatha. But because you can see in the second method, even after you practice vipassana, you still need to practice samatha. That's why vipassana is not insight, it's just contemplation. And in fact, in the Buddha's teachings, the samatha meditation is more important, because in one sutta, the Venerable Ananda was asked what type of meditation is praised by the Buddha, what type of meditation is not praised by the Buddha. And he answered, the type of meditation that is praised by the Buddha is the first jhana, the second jhana, the third jhana, the fourth jhana. And then the type of meditation which is not praised by the Buddha is the type of meditation where you do not get rid of the 5 hindrances. If you do not get rid of the 5 hindrances, that is not praised by the Buddha. But when you get rid of the 5 hindrances, you attain jhana. That means the only type of meditation where the Buddha praised actually is jhana. So I mention this because nowadays there's too much stress on vipassana, and some monks even go to the extent of belittling samatha meditation and saying that jhana is no benefit, because when you enter jhana you have no mindfulness. This is not true. In the suttas It is stated when you enter jhana, the mind is very mindful. Especially in the third and the fourth jhana, the mind is extremely mindful and collected. And also in another sutta, Venerable Ananda was asked, Venerable Ananda was asked, what is the one thing the Buddha taught to attain liberation? That means the one most important thing to attain liberation. And Venerable Ananda replied, the first jhana. Then the man asked, what is another thing that the Buddha taught is necessary to attain liberation? And he said the second jhana. Then the man asked him again, what is another thing? And then he said the third jhana, the fourth jhana. So you find from the suttas that the jhanas are very, very important. In fact, in another sutta, the Buddha said, truthfully I say unto you that the way to liberation is to attain the first jhana, second, third, fourth jhana. So I think I'll stop here for a moment and invite questions. So the question is, how does a Pachika Buddha become a Pachika Buddha? Firstly, what is the difference between an Arahant and a Buddha? This was asked by the Buddha and answered by the Buddha in one sutta. The Buddha asked his disciples, what is the difference between an Arahant Sammasambuddha and his disciple enlightened by wisdom? Actually, during the Buddha's time, the Arahant was the Buddha. Because the Buddha had 10 names, one of the names of the Buddha was Arahant. And his disciples were called Arahant later. He used to call them disciples liberated by wisdom. So how did the Buddha answer? What is the difference between Sammasambuddha and his Arahant disciple? The Buddha said the Buddha is the first to walk the Noble Eightfold Path. He has found the Noble Eightfold Path and he walks the Noble Eightfold Path and he's very proficient in the Noble Eightfold Path and he teaches the Noble Eightfold Path to others, expounds the Noble Eightfold Path. And his Arahant disciples follow the same path. So in other words, our Buddha is the first Arahant. Our Buddha is the first Arahant and his disciples follow the same path after him. So if they follow the same path, they arrive at the same place, yes or not? That is why the highest attainment you can get is the Arahant. Because the Buddha himself is an Arahant. An Arahant comes from the word Arahata. Ara and Hatta. Ara is the spokes of the wheel. Which wheel? The wheel of existence, samsara. Hatta means it's broken, destroyed. So an Arahatta or Arahant is one who has destroyed the wheel of rebirth. That means he won't be reborn. But there's one difference between Buddha and Arahant. Namely, an Arahant is one who is enlightened after listening to the Buddha's Dhamma. But a Buddha is a self-enlightened one. He is enlightened by his own effort. So usually a Buddha is a Sakadagamin, a second stage Arya who comes back the last time as a human being. So he will strive very hard until he becomes enlightened. Now what's the difference between a Pacheka Buddha and a Sammasambuddha? A Sammasambuddha is one who wants to teach the Dhamma to the world. But a Pacheka Buddha is one who is not willing to teach the Dhamma to the world. Other than that, there is no difference between the Pacheka Buddha and the Sammasambuddha. In fact, our Sakyamuni Buddha, after he was enlightened, he contemplated the world In our Vinayam books it is mentioned. And then he realized that human beings we are all lazy. We like to follow our feelings and flow with our feelings, just like going down the stream. If you swim down river, it's very easy, isn't it? The water will push you downstream. If you want to swim upstream, very susah, isn't it? Put a lot of effort and then you find you can hardly move upstream, yes or not? So because of that, the Buddha decided that he did not want to teach to the world. And then the Brahma, one of the Phantin Wong, I think Brahma Sahampati, he realized what the Buddha was thinking. So he came down and then he beseeched the Buddha. He pleaded to the Buddha to teach to the Dhamma to the world. He said there are some beings, a small percentage of beings with little dust in their eyes. If you don't teach them, then they will not progress, they will regress. If you teach them, then they will make progress. Then he pleaded with the Buddha 3 times. Then because of his pleading with the Buddha again contemplated the world, and he realized that there actually are some beings who can be helped by the true Dhamma. So because of that, he came to teach the world. So you find most Buddhas are like our Buddha. They don't want to teach. That's why in one sutta, Isigili Sutta, the Buddha mentioned a hill outside of Rajagaha called Isigili. And the Buddha said at one time there were 500 Pacheka Buddhas living on that hill. So you see, at one time sometimes you can find so many Pacheka Buddhas, but very hard to find one who is willing to teach to the world. That's why the Buddha mentioned in 91 world cycles, 91 kappas that he saw, only 6 Buddhas appeared. That means more than, on the average, more than 10 world cycles before you can meet a Sammasambuddha. So we are extremely fortunate that we are able to meet the true Dhamma. This question about Chat It Sap Say, it is not mentioned in our original teachings of the Buddha, and it is probably more of a Chinese belief, Taoist belief. And what is mentioned in the Mahayana teachings is this Yilanche, Ulambana festival, where it is said that Mahamoggallana went to hell to help his mother, and he found that he could not help his mother. So he had to ask all the Buddhas to come to help his mother. Then only they could help his mother. And because of that, so the Mahayanis, they pray to get all the Buddhas to come and help the beings in hell. But then in our Theravada suttas, it is said that once a being is reborn in the planes of other planes of existence, you cannot help them except when they are reborn in the ghost realm. Because the Buddha didn't say why, but I imagine it is because when a person, for example, your mother or your father has died and is reborn as a ghost, he's able to come back. That's why our Chinese believe after 7 days, the mother or the father will come back. And quite often it is true. When they come back, they let you know, they make some sound and all that. They let you know. So if you feel that they come back, it is because they have come back as a ghost. So only as a ghost you can help them, because when you pray for them, for example, you do charity or something for them, then they get to know because you are talking to them mentally. As a ghost, they can read your mind. But if they are in heaven, they are too far away, they don't come back. So they don't know what you are doing, isn't it? Before you can receive something from another person, you must know that that person is giving it to you. Then you are willing to accept, then only you can get. So heavenly beings won't get, and they don't need also what merit you want to give. And then if they are born as a human being also, they cannot get. You are doing some offering for them, there might be somebody's baby there crying away. So how would they know what you are doing? So they won't get. If they are born as an animal also, they won't get. Here you are doing some praying, some prayers and offerings for them. They are born as a dog fighting there. How to get? And then they are born in hell also. They're too far away, locked up and suffering. Won't know anything about what they are doing. They are born as a ghost. They'll come back. Actually, in the suttas, the Buddha said, if you make an offering for your relative in the ghost realm, and if they are not there, then you probably have some other relatives, either from your past life or somewhere, still in the ghost realm. And when you make offering to the ghosts, because they know you from the past, they happily come and receive. So
it's better to do it.
Yeah. And then the Buddha said, even if you don't have any relative in the ghost realm, you make the offering, you get. This dependent origination, paticca samuppada, basically is telling us that everything in the world is created from conditions. Every single thing in the world is created due to conditions. For example, you see this plastic bottle here. It is because of many ingredients that came into making this plastic bottle that you get it. And then this won't remain as it is. After some time, like now I've drunk the contents, I'll probably throw it away. And then the different parts will go into making some other thing. Maybe somebody may even recycle it. So if we understand dependent origination, that everything in this world is created from conditions, and anything that is created from conditions will cease, will die, will break up. Then you will realize that there's nothing in this world that is stable. Nothing in this world at all that is secure. Nothing that you can hold on to and be happy. Whatever happiness you experience is also due to conditions. And then conditions must change. Then you will realize that there is nothing worth holding on to in this world. Only then you let go and you will understand the Dhamma. Because in the description of how a person attains the first path, the Buddha said he gives this graduated discourse to these people, and then they understand that everything in this world comes about, arises through conditions and ceases through conditions. Then they realize that there is nothing they can hold on to, and then they slowly tired of this world. Then they slowly let go of this world, and then they have that understanding, they will become an Arya. Last time you asked about seeing this thing in meditation. Nowadays, a lot of meditation teachers, they say a lot of these things you have to see in your meditation. Actually, in our meditation, the three main things that we want to see is anicca, impermanence. And then because of impermanence, there is dukkha, suffering. And then anatta, there's no self. Actually, the first two, impermanence and suffering, you don't have to see in meditation. As we grow older, we see it all around us. Most people around us are aging, and we ourselves also aging. So it is not during meditation. Whatever you see in meditation of impermanence and dukkha, it's such a short time in your meditation. How can you really see it? Whereas in everyday life, you really see it. For example, when somebody dies and you go and attend the funeral, when they bring out the coffin, you see how how sorrowfully the family weeps. Yes or not? Somebody that you love for so many years now is leaving you, and leaving you for good, It's not like going for a holiday and coming back. And then you also realize that not only that person is leaving you, you will be suffering the same fate very soon, So because you see that, and great sorrow comes up. Like for us as a monk, we attend quite often funerals, and we see people really cry during a funeral, especially when they take out the coffin from the house. So that you don't have to see in meditation. What you have to see in meditation is anatta, not self. And that is not only in meditation, you have to study the Dhamma. Because the Buddha has explained all this so well, better than you can see yourself. Yes or not? So actually, if you really want to attain the Dhamma, actually two things very important. One is to study the suttas, the original discourses of the Buddha. The second thing is to practice samatha meditation, to get rid of the 5 hindrances. When you get rid of the 5 hindrances, or at least reduce your 5 hindrances. If your mind becomes more tranquil, then your hindrances are reduced. And when your hindrances are reduced, you can understand the sutta much better. That's why you find actually in the suttas and the Vinaya, the first few arahants that were converted by the Buddha, they never meditated, never meditated. Quite a number of them. For example, there was one man by the name of Yasa. He was from a very rich family, and as a young man, he already had many wives, because at that time, you can have as many wives as you can afford. So he had many wives, and then the Buddha made him come to the Buddha in the middle of the night, And then he walked out of the city gates. When he came to the city gates opened by themselves. Then he went into the forest and came to where the Buddha was. And then the Buddha taught him the Dhamma. And just by listening once to the Dhamma, he became a first path attainer, already an Arya. Next morning, the father was looking for him, because the father, being such a rich man, was afraid that the son maybe got kidnapped or something, and went all around looking for him. Also came to the forest, came to where the Buddha was. And the Buddha used his psychic power. The son, Yasa, was sitting beside the Buddha, but the father couldn't see him. Father couldn't see the son. So the father asked the Buddha whether he had seen Yasa, was looking for his son. So the Buddha said, "Why don't you sit down here? Maybe in a short while you see Yasa." So he heard that the Buddha say maybe he could see Yasa. Very happily he sat down. And the Buddha taught him the Dhamma. Same 9 points. And the father became Arya, first path attainer. The son, listening to the same discourse second time, became Arahant. So you see, actually, the power of a Buddha. The Buddha, because of his great psychic power, he can see who are those people who already practice and attain jhana in the previous life. And he especially seek out these people, Either he go to them or he make them come to him, and then he teach them the Dhamma and they become Arahant.